Well, this is really bigger than the injury. Being close to Odell, I know personally that he was in better shape physically and mentally than any season previously. He had 3 great seasons, no rookie receiver. Rookie, second-year, third-year receiver had accomplished what he had accomplished. Double digits in touchdowns in all 3 years. So I know the mental anguish that he went through. I know in the back of his mind, Odell wants a new long-term contract at the end of this season. So anytime you have that personal information, you know this is bigger than just an injury. Now, this is not an ACL. This is not something that's going to hamper his career, but I know his mental state. And his mental state was damaged more than any type of bone or ligament because he wanted to prove people wrong. And he was really in tremendous shape to have a great year. He actually had discussed having 1,800 to 2,000 yards, 15 to 20 touchdowns as far as his personal goals. So he's not going to be able to accomplish them, but that was his mindset heading into the season. And for it to week number 2 in the preseason, I think is when he got injured, then re-aggravate the injury, then he gets the dog, and I mean, just the type of attention and the type of season that we hadn't planned for. So, I mean, I feel for him. Injuries are a part of the game, but it won't affect the Giants. Will they pay him? Will he get the long-term contract? It will not affect what they're going to give him leading up the next season.
Well, that's we should have that discussion, and I think we will have the discussion throughout the week and throughout the year. I think the Giants are going to, at some point, have to make the decision, if we are rebuilding, does it make sense to have the highest bid?
The owners already said that we want Odell back. We want him in New York long term.
I know, but I don't think the owner expected a season that might end with a coach fired and a new quarterback and the
you still need
receiver
players,
on IR. Listen, you know how much I like Odell. But that's it. Look,
the Giants have no choice, Nick. Like, I won't even listen to anything. They have no choice but to pay him. They have no choice.
Okay. I mean, I
when
think...
have you ever known the Giants to rebuild? Tell me one time in the last 30 years. Now, when they decided to give Ray Handley that, now they were doing something. Okay. But tell me when the Giants have tried to rebuild as an organization. That's not something that they do.
It's not something they do, but it's also not something they've been forced to do.
What are they going to do with the quarterback? They're going to cut him?
Well, listen, we're now having big picture Giant discussions. If you ask me, is it in play that next year, week 1, the Giants have a new coach? The Giants next year, week 1, have a new quarterback?
Nick, you're crazy.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'm crazy.
Eli's not going anywhere.
Okay. All right. So let's table that just for a moment to stay in the moment here. Why am I such a big fan of Odell? I don't know him the way Cris does. I know him a little bit, but I don't have a personal relationship like CC does. I'm not from New York. So what made me such a big fan of Odell? He's just such a brilliant player. You mentioned the first 3 years. Odell's played 47 career games. They are the most productive first 47 games of a career by any receiver ever, bar none. He is first in catches. He is second in yards. He is fourth in touchdowns. He is first in 100-yard receiving games. The only guy who comes close is Lance Allworth, who played 50 years ago, 45 years ago. That's how special this guy is, man. And what is so frustrating and so tough for the Giants is, like, obviously, I picked him to go to the Super Bowl, so I look stupid. That's fine. But the blueprint that I laid out is exactly what they did the last 3 weeks with a healthy Odell. Defense do just enough. Odell make 1 or 2 spectacular plays late in the game, have a fourth-quarter lead. 3 weeks in a row, they've had a fourth-quarter lead thanks to a brilliant play by Odell Beckham. And 3 weeks in a row, what we thought was going to be the strength of their team, their defense, has squandered that fourth-quarter lead against less than prolific offenses. You now add to it that Beckham has a shattered ankle, and
it's a broken bone. The broken bone. They're easy. They heal.
Okay, so let me ask you about that, because you said something that surprised me, and this is, I'm not arguing with you here because you have obviously a higher area of expertise on this. You said this doesn't affect the long-term part of his career. No. A broken bone here, is much easier to deal with than a torn ligament.
100%.
Yes, if the ligament's in his knee. Yeah, if it's an ACL, MCL, no, PCL, that's a lot more complicated than a fracture.
Okay.
A fracture will heal.
That's for him long term. I guess the most important part. But to your point on the season, like he had been, even despite the ankle sprain, Jenna, he'd been playing great. He'd been their best offensive player, even though he was only healthy for 3 games. And to see this, it's just such a bummer for the league. It's such a bummer for the league.
We should also mention that the rest of the receiving corps is basically all injured as well. I mean, this team is now riddled with injuries.
Well, Jenna, this is the thing, too. This team, and back to Nick's point, most of the defensive players that they signed last year are signed long-term. But this is what happens every year. J.J. Watt, one of the great players, injured yesterday. He was also injured last year. Gronk, one of the great players we've seen, injured, out for the season. Several years ago, Tom Brady went down week number 1. That's how strong the NFL brand is and the product. It's not based on one player. Like next weekend's games are going to be just as exciting because they're bigger than one player getting injured.
So where does an 0-5 team go without their best player now? So play the season out for me.
Oh, they're going to be on 7. Their schedule is tight. I mean, they're going to lose this week, I think.
They're at Denver, then home for Seattle.
They're going to lose both of those games. They're going to be 0-7. But that's not Odell's problem. That's the head coach's problem.
Well, and listen, this is another thing you're going to say Giants don't do. Giants don't rebuild. I know. Giants don't fire coaches midseason. I know. But if you're sitting at 0-7 at the bye, like Ben McAdoo,
even though if they fire Ben McAdoo, they're not rebuilding. They still have Eli. They still have most of their defense signed. Only thing they have to address is the offensive line.
Cece, are we sure still having Eli is a good thing? Are we sure that's a good thing?
What's your better option?
Well, if you're 0-7 and you're staring at a top 3 pick, your better option is what a lot of.
Absolutely.
How'd the Eagles get Carson Wentz?
You tell me somebody you saw in college that's better than Eli.
Well, then better than Eli.
Sam Darnold?
Cece, was Carson Wentz. Like Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Deshaun Watson. We are seeing young quarterbacks make instant impacts, at least starting in year 2, if not starting in year 1.
So they're just going to cut Eli. That's what they're going to do. They're going to cut Eli, all right, who has a couple years left on it. Like,
I've seen better players get cut.
At the least, they're going to have to address the situation.
A quarterback. Tell me what quarterback. Well, he had an injury.
Tony Romo got cut.
He had an injury, and then he had someone better than him.
Okay, well, all right. I'm just the idea that the Giants it could be 0-7 after being 11-5, and I know we're now fast forwarding, but and the idea is we just have to fix the offensive line, and it'll be all better. Like Eli be 37. I just think these are the types of things that a team that thought they could go to the Super Bowl. Maybe I'm being unfair, but I think that they've got to be thinking about what is our future actually looking like.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.